So, you might recall yesterday we made a video talking about the Matthew Tkachuk trade and how he was sent over from the Calgary Flames to the Florida Panthers in what was one of, if not the absolute biggest trades in the past, 2-3 decades. Goodness gracious, when was the last time we had two 100-point players get swapped around in a trade? Was it the Gretzky deal? It might have been. Either way, Matthew Tkachuk was traded over to Florida, and the video I made was just outside the sushi restaurant saying, hey, we are literally outside the sushi restaurant, I am just finishing up my dinner and getting ready for some drop-in volleyball at the community center. By the way, my friends and I thought we were good because we had been practicing outside in the sand the past few months, but my goodness, we got absolutely smoked. Definitely bottom 5 percentile of talent that was there at the community center. We absolutely sucked, but it was fun. At the same time, losing, getting to know yourself a little bit better, getting to know that there are so many other ways to play the game, and we have a lot to work on, despite losing as much as we did. But either way, the video yesterday pretty much said, yeah, we might make some more videos going over some different angles, talking about some other things related to the trade, and this video is that right here. Now, am I going to go out there and declare a winner and a loser of the Tkachuk-Calgary, Florida swap? No, not necessarily. I'm not going to go out there and say that the Calgary Flames won because they got Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar and a prospect and a first, because there are contract implications that make the conversation a lot more interesting. I'm not going to go out there and say that the Florida Panthers won because they got Matthew Tkachuk and signed him for the next 8 seasons, because they still gave up a heck of a lot of value to acquire this player. The video yesterday kind of goes over all the angles, but in this video today, I wanted to talk about some of the comments that were made by Bill Zito and just the overall sentiment towards Matthew Tkachuk and how his new team, the Florida Panthers, feel about this player. So, the big quote here is one that I wanted to highlight on the channel. As I said, it's a quote from Bill Zito immediately after the trade was made. Matthew Tkachuk is a tenacious, physical competitor who possesses a tremendously unique skill set. He's a consistent, elite offensive contributor and has emerged as one of the most complete and dynamic young players in the NHL. We are thrilled to be able to add a generational talent. Now, okay, that's a big word. Generational is a very defining word when it comes to the status and the reputation of players in the National Hockey League. Would I personally say that Matthew Tkachuk is a quote-unquote generational talent? No, I would not necessarily say that. In fact, there are very few players that I would throw that label around for. Matthew Tkachuk, unfortunately, is not one of them. Sidney Crosby? Sure. Connor McDavid? Sure. Maybe even Cale Makar, you might be able to throw his name in that hat. But Matthew Tkachuk, unfortunately, I am going to have to disagree with Mr. Bill Zito over here. Maybe, in terms of what Zito is referring to here, it's the combination of skills and how these skills differ from so many other players who exhibit individual traits, but not the entire picture. Matthew Tkachuk, as we said in yesterday's video behind the sushi restaurant, he can score, he can play make, he can do some very cool in-between-the-legs moves, and he can fight, he can hit, he's a very complete player all around, and maybe Bill Zito is going out there and saying, hey, what other player is there in the National Hockey League that can do all the things that Tkachuk can do, and do them all so well? Nobody. Therefore, this is a once-in-a-generation player. However, there is a lot of dispute that is available to that kind of argument, because it's like, okay, just because a player is excelling at a lot of things, everything at the NHL level, does not mean, in most people's opinions, that he is of that same magnitude that a generational player reputation-wise would entail. Because for Connor McDavid, who cares if Connor McDavid cannot fight? Who cares if Connor McDavid doesn't hit? Who cares if Connor McDavid does not battle along the boards? Who cares if he might not be the best defensively? Connor McDavid is so gosh darn good at scoring, skating, and moving around with the puck that it's in a territory that we have never seen before out of any player. Maybe for Matthew Tkachuk, you could say that there are very few players who have had the same combination of skills that he has had, but at the same time, I don't really think that label generational is an appropriate one here, but I guess we've got 8 years for Bill Zito to prove us right. Either way, though, I also wanted to talk about a lot of the Canucks fans that are going out there and discussing this trade, not necessarily because, oh, Calgary got Huberdeau and they got Weegar, they're so good now, what the hell happened? They lost Gaudreau and they lost Tkachuk, but now this team looks better than they did a week ago? You could debate about that. I'm not really too sure if that's the case, but a lot of Canucks fans are also using this as an opportunity to dunk on another player that has been sort of linked to Matthew Tkachuk the entire time ever since he was drafted by the team in 2016. The pick that was taken right before him, and fellow teammate on the London Knights, Olli Juolevi. Now, Canucks fans are kind of ruthless and they're unforgiving at times, and they don't really let things go, which I think is a bad thing, but at the same time, it makes for some very entertaining conversations like this one. Ever since the Tkachuk trade went down to the Florida Panthers, you had a few Canucks fans going out there saying, hey, Olli Juolevi was also traded to the Florida Panthers, and it's kind of funny because this team ended up getting two players that are kind of linked in Vancouver discourse because Jim Benning, of course, went out there in 2016 and with the 5th overall pick selected from the London Knights Olli Juolevi instead of selecting Tkachuk. And it's not even just he passed on Tkachuk, it's he passed on any of the other defensemen that were available because the Vancouver Canucks needed defense. We made a video talking about how Benning admitted a few years down the line that, yeah, we drafted for need. And when it comes to that need, they took the wrong guy, absolutely, because Sergachev, Fabro, McAvoy, all available in that 2016 draft. The Canucks end up taking Juolevi. He's the first defenseman taken off the board, and he absolutely sucks. But the Florida Panthers had both Juolevi and Tkachuk in their systems at separate times, and you had Canucks fans going out there making memes like this. Unlike the Canucks, the Florida Panthers realized it was time to move on from Juolevi, and that Matthew Tkachuk was the right choice. Matthew Tkachuk is good and all, but have you ever heard of Olli Juolevi? You also had this thing posted by Brett Holden about how players at the 2016 draft have all gotten traded except for Austin Matthews and Jesse Puljujarvi in the top 6. Now, the talent pool for this draft, I feel, is pretty good. Matthews is great, Laine is great, Dubois is a good player, but I don't think he's a good guy. Matthew Tkachuk scored 100 points, so he's pretty good. But when it comes to the movement of players and the sticking around of these guys on their teams, it's not really all too great here. It's also laid on the line in full by Terry Guest29 what the returns were. Juolevi was traded to Florida for Noah Juulsen and Juho Lammikko. Matthew Tkachuk was traded to the Panthers for Huberdeau, Weegar, a prospect, and a first. Very clear win for the Vancouver Canucks here. Of course, he is being facetious, but it's kind of funny how Olli Juolevi's name can still trend here in this part of the nation because Vancouver Canucks fans are just savage. Or they just can't move on from things and they can't forgive. Maybe it's a little bit of both. But talk in the comments either way all your thoughts about Matthew Tkachuk and the idea of him being a generational player, as well as the link between him and former Canucks draftee Olli Juolevi. Do you think the Florida Panthers are going to improve their team with this type of move? Or do you think this was more of a long-term, okay, we need to make sure we actually have a future kind of move because we don't know if we are going to be able to re-sign Huberdeau and or Mackenzie Weegar? Talk in the comments even more about what do you think the Flames accomplished in this trade. I saw a lot of really good comments in the previous video. The pinned comment is one that I like a lot. But either way, same as always, we might not record any more videos behind a sushi restaurant. It kind of depends on what my friends end up doing, talking about volleyball and everything. Man, I'm still feeling kind of demoralized for showing up at the community center in a group of about 60 people and absolutely sucking, eating dirt on almost every rotation, but still, at the same time, gotta be a good sport, gotta go out there and just laugh at what's going on and try to find things that you can improve on. That's probably another thing that I feel like I needed to establish out there as well. I'm not butthurt about being bad. I accept that I'm bad. I'm just kind of using this conversation to fill a little bit more time in this video, and plus I actually really did want to talk about it. So yeah, anybody want to go out there and comfort me in the comments, please give me guides on how to do jump serves and be able to spike. I'm only 5'3", but I can jump pretty high. So yeah, talk to me in the comments, like your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.